Now, quickly before I even get into the video, if you could drop a like and subscribe to the channel, that would be greatly appreciated. I'm trying to hit 20k as soon as possible, and subbing and liking the video really helps out a lot. So anyways, let's get into the video. Now, when we hear people talk about what it takes to win an NBA championship, what's something that we commonly hear? You need championship experience. I mean, it's funny because you need experience from winning a championship to win a championship. So how do you win one when you don't have the experience? Well, that's a big issue. That's why teams like the Golden State Warriors continued to beat up on less experienced teams. That's why teams led by LeBron have so often made it through to the finals in close series. I mean, they have LeBron, but also they just have that pedigree and that experience. And when you're talking about a young team that's emerging, a young team that wants to contend for a championship in the Dallas Mavericks, people look at them and think maybe they're a couple of years away because they need a bit more experience and they don't have that championship experience on the roster. But I'm here to tell you that they do, and that championship experience is in the form of Luka Doncic. Yes, he won a championship in the Euroleague. He was a finals MVP. That's the second toughest competition in the world. At 19, to win a finals MVP, it shows something and it proves something, and it is something. It's not like he's just out there being a bit part player coming off the bench as a teenager. He's out there leading his team to victory in the second toughest basketball league in the world. Some people have said it's tougher to score, a la Luka Doncic. He said it's tougher to actually score in the Euroleague, and he went on to win a finals MVP in that league. And if you question whether that translated over to the NBA, his finals experience, well, just look at his playoff numbers. We saw what he did against the Clippers. Do you know the defense the Clippers have? Yeah, the Clippers are a laughingstock based off everything that happened to them, but they still have Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and even Marcus Morris is a good wing defender. Add JaMychal Green. Patrick Beverley was being a pest as a point guard. Any of these guys stop him? Probably Kawhi got a few stops on him, but apart from Kawhi, one of the best defenders probably of our generation, particularly at the wing spot, none of these guys were able to stop him, particularly guys like Patrick Beverley was just too small, and he got bulldozed through every time. And basically what I'm saying is, this championship experience translated to the NBA playoffs. People don't give it the same respect because it didn't happen in America. It didn't happen in the NBA. But I'm here to tell you that this is championship experience, and this is a reason that the Dallas Mavericks are championship contenders as soon as next year, because Luka Doncic, their best player, has been there and done that, and we've seen it already translate to the postseason, and I expect if they make it through to the second, the third, and the finals, that it'll translate through to the NBA finals, because that's the kind of player he is, and that's the kind of experience winning a championship in one of the toughest leagues in the world will do for you. So I think that's a key part people are leaving out when they want to talk about Luka and his hopes of winning a title. He's already done it before, and I don't see why he can't do it as soon as next year. And when Dallas are making the kind of moves that they've made, which we're going to talk about, because I think this really adds to their championship hopes, because its championship is what they should be aiming for. There's no reason with probably someone who's going to be a top 5 player heading into this year. Kristaps Porzingis, if healthy, is at least a top 30 player. I think he could reach top 20 based off what we saw in the bubble. And then you have the kind of free agency and trade period that you had. If you're the Dallas Mavericks, you needed one major thing: wing defense, wing depth. You were getting torched by Kawhi. Even PG had some games, but in particular, Kawhi got to any spot on the floor and was so dominant and just so destructive that if he had some kind of bodies in front of him, like the Nuggets put in front of him, the Mavericks could have won. And they've brought in a few different answers for the wings that they're going to come up against. The main one being Josh Richardson, who comes in as something more than just a defensive threat. He can score off the dribble. He's a good catch and shoot guy. He can get to the rim. He can do some playmaking. Offensively, he's good. Offensively, his last year in the Heat, he was really solid. He was really emerging. I don't expect him to do a ton because you've got Luka who's creating all the offense. But the reality is, if you've got Luka creating all that offense, he makes everyone around him better shooters. Seth Curry was a better shooter with Luka. Dorian Finney-Smith, Tim Hardaway Jr., all these guys have had great shooting years alongside Luka Doncic, and it's because of the offense, and it's because of how good he is as a playmaker, and how good he is as a threat just offensively. His gravity is just so strong that it allows open looks, and I expect nothing less for Richardson, and that's why I think he's going to thrive so much in Dallas, so I'm really excited to see how that's worked. And then there's been a couple of underrated ones. I think James Johnson is a really underrated signing. You bring him in, he's on a huge contract. Definitely not worth the contract. But you're going to bring him in One thing the Mavericks needed as well is an enforcer. And you bring in probably the scariest man in the league in terms of someone who's got a black belt, MMA, UFC, whatever, you name it. He's been in fights. He's done all of that. He's not going to cop the stuff the Clippers were throwing the way of Luka, Marcus Morris stepping on his ankle, all these guys trying to get under his skin. James Johnson's going to go in there, and if he needs to get a tech, if he needs to get ejected, the Mavericks are going to be fine with that, as long as he stamps his authority next time teams try to get under Luka's skin. And at the very least, he's going to do that. But he's also a pretty good basketball player as well, if you didn't realize. He's a good defender, he's a versatile player. He played center in Minnesota, but generally he's a power forward, a small forward, and he's going to do that. He's going to guard a couple of positions. He's going to be pretty successful at it. He's an above average league shooter, and I expect that to at the very least continue, if not get better alongside Luka. He's got a bit of an offensive game in terms of a passer. He can do a few different things, and he'll give you 20 minutes a night, and he's going to give you that different kind of look as a real strong, big body who can get under the skin of other players and isn't going to allow any kind of things to happen to Luka like was happening in the last series against the Clippers. So that's a really important signing that people haven't talked about enough, and I think that really helps their playoff hopes because he's got playoff experience and he's the kind of guy you want in your team, in your locker room, going to war when you're in the playoffs. So I really like that signing. Another one that you talk about is Josh Green, another 3-and-D type guy. He was got in the draft. Some draft experts think he's one of the most NBA-ready prospects in the draft because of his big frame. He's going to be ready to shoot. He's going to be ready to knock down shots. He's going to be ready to guard players and do all of that good stuff. I think he's another guy that's going to come in and give them an impact. And it's just the amount of players that they're bringing in that can give him an impact, give him a different look, give him some defense, surrounds Luka with shooting and defense. Luka and Kristaps shooting and defense around them. And that's pretty much all you need. You need role players that are committed to the cause and are going to put their body on the line. And that's pretty much what they've got. Even Wes Iwundu, who they got on a minimum deal. I mean, is he going to go crazy? Is he going to do anything miraculous? No. Could he offer 10 minutes a game in the playoffs? Potentially, as someone who can guard a few different positions, someone who's improved his shooting? Maybe. If he stays on the roster, who knows? He could be solid. Tyler Bay, they drafted. He's more of a project guy, but he's another guy that fits that mold. You see the mold they're going for. They're going for shooters and defenders, and another shooter they got was Tyrell Terry, who I've talked about a bit more in depth, so I don't really need to talk about that. This video was more aimed at people who question the championship experience, the championship pedigree of a team like Dallas because of their youth and because they haven't been there before. Well, newsflash, Luka has been there before. Just because he wasn't wearing an NBA jersey doesn't mean it doesn't count. So I think I can have faith that if it gets to the finals, if he makes it that far, he's going to deliver like he's delivered every stage of his career, whether that's a regular season, whether it's playing in Spain, or whether it's playing in the NBA. He delivers, and that's the championship experience you want from your best player. So that's really the main thing of this video that I wanted to talk about, because it's something everyone continues to overlook when they try to discredit the Mavericks' chance at winning a championship this year. But let's get back to Tyrell Terry, another player they brought in who can shoot. He's a bit light-framed, and he's probably not going to have a huge role from the get-go unless his shooting just takes off, and he's just so impactful. But he could come off the bench, could emerge, because he's a shooter, and the reality is, regardless of your frame, regardless if you can't defend yet, if you can knock down shots and do that really consistently at a high volume and high efficiency, you're going to get minutes in the NBA regardless of who you are, regardless of who you're playing for. This is why I love what the Dallas Mavericks have done, and this is why I'm not sleeping on Dallas as a potential championship contender. Kristaps has to be healthy. That's such a huge thing because I think he is so good when healthy. I think he could honestly be the best center in the league if he starts at the 5 and if he does everything that he can do, given he can stretch the floor beyond 30 feet. He's one of the best deep shooters in the league. Given he was getting to the free throw line, he can block shots. He's got agility for a big man. He can do all these things. It's still a while before he can get into that best big man in the league conversation. But the way he was playing in the bubble pre-injury, averaging 30 and 10, even putting up like 30 and 10 on the Clippers while having a torn meniscus, that's the kind of things he's done. And that's why he's going to be so good. So if you can get him healthy, and then you have Luka and the guys that they've added, the 3-and-D depth, you've already got Taurean Finney-Smith, you've got Jalen Brunson, one of my favorite backups in the league. Tyrell Terry could be an X-factor as a shooter. You've got Tim Hardaway Jr., who's really come along and is really consistent now. Well, I wouldn't say really consistent, a lot more consistent than he was. I felt like in New York, he was putting up 30 and then putting up 3 points a night. Whereas in Dallas, this kind of speaks to Luka again. I know I keep speaking about Luka, but he's just the best player on that team. But it speaks to Luka that he gets him consistently good looks. And it speaks to Tim Hardaway Jr., who's come a long way, and Rick Carlisle. And that just goes to show everything is going right about this Dallas team and this Dallas organization as a whole. I mean, even Mark Cuban, if you want to go that deep and look at the ownership, he's doing great things. There's just so many reasons to be optimistic about this Dallas team. And don't sleep on them as a championship contender. I've said it once, I've said it twice, I've said it a few times, let's be honest, but I'm going to say it again because this is the last point I'm probably going to make before the season about Dallas. And it's just the one thing, can't sleep on the championship pedigree of a EuroLeague Finals MVP. That is pedigree, and that is impressive, and that holds weight going into the NBA playoffs. So that's all I'm going to say. I've covered the offseason moves. I think they had a fantastic offseason. They addressed their needs. If they can all stay healthy, this team is going to be one of the most dangerous teams in the league because you've got an unstoppable force in Luka. And I would argue Kristaps Porzingis is just about unstoppable on offense. And then you're starting to add all these pieces that can shoot the ball and stop the opposition's best player, which they couldn't do before. And all of a sudden, you've got a great head coach, a great owner, all of these things colliding. Yeah, this team could be a championship level team as soon as next year. If you did enjoy the video, a like would be greatly appreciated. I make this content very regularly, pretty much daily at this point in time. Subbing to the channel would be appreciated. So other than that, I'll catch you next time. Have a good one. Bye.